Battle involving a U.S. speedboat and Cuban troops off the coast of Cuba.
During Hurricane Sandy, but since then, beach erosion has made this area even more vulnerable, especially.
While most mud volcanoes do very little damage, the Piparo.
After a monster supercell system brought at least 7 reported twisters overnight.
I cried because that's where I have all my notes, that's where I have my.
In just days, across the United States, the sky twisted into violent tornadoes in the heartland. Coastal cities braced under surging waters. Gunfire shattered tense seas near its borders, and the earth split as pressure burst through the ground. These events unfolded in different states under different circumstances, yet the timing feels compressed, almost aligned. And then, after a home was reduced to ashes, one object remained nearly untouched: a Bible. When wind, water, earth, and fire all shift within the same window of time, it presses a deeper question into the national conscience. Is this coincidence or convergence? Stay with me, and if this moves you, like, comment, and subscribe. Overnight, a massive supercell system stretched across the Midwest, spawning at least 7 tornadoes that carved violent paths through towns that had gone to sleep under calm skies. Funnel clouds descended in full view of highways and neighborhoods, rotating with terrifying precision, as if the atmosphere itself had turned mechanical. Sirens wailed across miles of farmland while black columns twisted downward, tearing roofs from homes, collapsing storefronts, and flipping vehicles as though they weighed nothing at all. Power grids failed within hours, plunging entire communities into darkness while debris rained from the sky like fragments of a broken world. This was not a brief gust or a seasonal squall. It was organized chaos. Lightning fractured the horizon in relentless bursts while hail pounded structures already straining against winds that seemed to scream rather than blow. Surveillance footage captured walls imploding inward, garage doors ripped free, and transformers exploding in flashes of blue fire. The violence felt targeted, deliberate, almost surgical in its destruction. Yet the Midwest was not alone. While rotating columns stalked the plains, heavy snow blanketed parts of the east, burying roads and halting travel. Torrential rain drenched the south, swelling rivers beyond their banks and saturating already fragile ground. In the west, a deadly avalanche thundered down a mountainside, crushing everything in its path and leaving silence where life had been moments before. Different regions, different forms of impact, yet all unfolding within the same narrow window of time. The convergence is what unsettles. Wind, ice, flood, and falling earth striking across the map in rapid succession. The atmosphere seemed restless from coast to coast, as though invisible forces were shifting layers of air and land simultaneously. Meteorologists may chart pressure systems and jet streams, but the scale and synchronization of events leave an afterimage in the national psyche. Scripture once spoke of signs in the heavens and distress among nations, of roaring forces that would unsettle those who believed the ground beneath them was stable. Whether one interprets these words literally or metaphorically, the imagery now feels less distant. Massive rotation in the sky, lightning clawing at darkness, communities shaken within hours. Perhaps this was only a powerful weather system amplified by seasonal conditions. Or perhaps it marks a deepening rhythm, an escalation that reveals how fragile modern certainty truly is. What is clear is that this was not a gentle reminder. It was a violent demonstration of how quickly order can unravel when the sky itself begins to turn. As the nor'easter intensified, the ocean began to move inland with a patience that felt deliberate. Snow fell from above, but the greater threat did not come from the sky. It came from the water. Tide after tide pressed forward, rising nearly 3 feet beyond its expected reach. slipping past curbs and sidewalks as though the map itself had been redrawn. Streets that once separated land from sea dissolved into a gray, shifting boundary. This was not simply flooding, it was encroachment. Wind drove waves over barriers designed to withstand past storms. Yet those defenses now appeared thin, worn by years of erosion that quietly weakened the coast long before this system arrived. Sand that once buffered impact had vanished, grain by grain, and foundations stood closer to open water than residents realized. What had been rebuilt after earlier disasters now faced a different kind of pressure, one that did not strike and vanish, but advanced and lingered. Water pooled in intersections and parking garages, then continued to rise. Snow layered the surface, disguising depth and turning roads into traps. Emergency vehicles navigated currents instead of pavement. Storefront windows reflected not holiday lights, but the shimmer of seawater where sidewalks used to be. The city was not merely enduring weather, it was being tested at its edges. There is something deeply unsettling about the sea crossing its boundary. For generations, the coastline represented a line, a fixed agreement between stability and motion. Yet here, that agreement fractured. Rising tides combined with winter fury to produce an image of waters in turmoil, a scene reminiscent of ancient descriptions where the earth trembles and the mountains slip into the heart of the sea. Whether taken symbolically or literally, the symbolism is difficult to ignore. This event does not stand isolated. It follows tornadoes, seismic ruptures, and violent headlines from other regions. Different forces, yet a shared pattern of pressure building at the margins. The ocean's advance felt less like a temporary surge, and more like a warning that lines once trusted can shift without negotiation. Perhaps this was only meteorology amplified by geography. Yet, when land surrenders ground and waves rewrite streets overnight, it becomes more than data. It becomes an image, and the image is of a boundary dissolving. If this pattern unsettles you, take a moment to reflect and engage. Like this video to continue exploring what these converging forces might mean. The incident unfolded far from headlines and city skylines, yet what happened on that stretch of open water carried an intensity difficult to dismiss. As a crew of fishermen hauled in their nets under steady skies, the surface around their vessel began to thicken with movement. What first appeared as scattered ripples quickly multiplied into converging currents, and within moments dark shapes surged upward in startling numbers. A dense swarm of seals encircled the boat from every direction, tightening the space between hull and horizon until the sea itself seemed to close in. The nets, heavy with catch, became the immediate focus of the frenzy. Sleek bodies lunged through suspended mesh, tearing fish free before they could be secured on deck. The water frothed with force as fins sliced and collided, producing a violent rhythm of splashes that struck the sides of the vessel. Fish vanished faster than hands could pull, and the crew's coordinated effort unraveled into frantic reaction. The ocean no longer felt like a passive environment beneath them. It felt animated, urgent, overwhelming. What unsettled the moment most was not the financial loss, but the speed of reversal. Minutes earlier, the men had exercised control over timing, equipment, and outcome. Now, that dominance narrowed to almost nothing, as instinctive force from below dictated the scene. The boundary between human authority and marine power compressed abruptly, exposing how fragile that hierarchy truly is. The visual carried symbolic weight. In Scripture, waters frequently represent multitudes, nations, and restless movement that resists containment. Revelation 17:15 speaks of seas as peoples and crowds, while Luke 21:25 describes roaring waves that unsettle societies. Whether interpreted metaphorically or spiritually, the parallel is striking. A mass rising from beneath the visible layer, converging with sudden density, altering the balance in seconds. There were no storm warnings, no seismic alerts, no atmospheric rotations overhead. Yet the intensity rivaled the drama of larger disasters. Something beneath the surface had aligned, and when it surfaced, it shifted the atmosphere instantly. The ocean did not swallow the vessel, but it demonstrated how quickly the illusion of command can erode. The moment can be framed as more than marine behavior. It becomes an image of unseen movement gathering below the line of sight, then breaking through without negotiation. The sea did not need to flood coastlines to reveal its volatility. It only needed to rise, surround, and remind those above it that the depths are never still. Stay with this pattern, because what comes next moves even closer to shore. The disturbance this time did not come from wind or waves, but from gunfire that shattered the stillness of waters long regarded as routine and secure. A U.S.-registered speedboat was intercepted near U.S. territory, and within moments the confrontation escalated, resulting in casualties. The location intensifies the gravity of the event, because this was not a distant flashpoint across a foreign horizon, but an incident unfolding close enough to domestic shores to unsettle assumptions about proximity and protection. Cuban authorities accused the vessel of violating territorial boundaries and initiating aggression, while American officials demanded an independent investigation and immediate access to those involved, framing the clash as a matter requiring transparency and accountability. Diplomatic language moved quickly across press briefings and statements, yet beneath carefully measured phrasing lay the sharper reality that weapons had been discharged in a region often described as stable despite underlying political tension. Borders appear solid on maps until they are tested by force, and when confrontation pierces a space previously governed by cautious balance, the sense of permanence weakens. For years, this stretch of water carried tourism, migration, and commerce, despite long-standing friction between governments, functioning as a narrow channel where tension remained contained rather than explosive. In seconds, that containment fractured, revealing how quickly restraint can dissolve when mistrust and miscalculation converge. The broader regional climate deepens concern, as energy shortages and economic strain have heightened instability, while political rhetoric has hardened on multiple fronts. When pressure accumulates quietly across months and years, a single encounter can ignite consequences far beyond its immediate scope. The unsettling factor is not only the loss of life, but the realization that volatility has edged closer to American shores than many believed possible. This was not declared a war, yet it cannot be dismissed as a routine misunderstanding. It unfolded within a wider landscape already marked by atmospheric violence, surging waters, and geological rupture, adding human conflict to a sequence of disruptions touching sky, sea, and land. When boundaries, environmental or territorial, begin to blur in rapid succession, the illusion of insulation thins, and the question shifts from whether instability exists to how near it is willing to come. The ground did not roar at first, and no sirens warned of what was building beneath the surface. The soil appeared ordinary, unremarkable, resting under open sky as it had for years, while something unseen gathered force in darkness below. Then, without ceremony, the crust fractured, and from that rupture surged a column of scalding mud and gas that twisted upward like a living thing forcing its way into daylight. What had been solid terrain transformed into a churning mouth. Thick slurry boiled and spat, hurling clots of earth outward as vapor hissed through the air with a sound that felt disturbingly alive. The eruption did not rival the scale of a volcanic mountain, yet its intimacy made it more unsettling. Because this was not a distant summit glowing on a horizon, but the very ground beneath human feet opening without permission. Pressure had accumulated in silence. Layer upon layer of trapped heat and compressed gas had pressed against confinement, waiting for weakness in the crust above. When that weakness formed, release was not gradual but violent, as if restraint had snapped and the earth exhaled everything it had been forced to swallow. The landscape shifted in seconds, trading stability for instability, predictability for rupture. The sight of mud roiling like liquid stone evokes ancient imagery where the earth itself responds to unseen commands. In Numbers 16:31-32, the ground split apart and swallowed what stood upon it, while in Matthew 27:51, the soil trembled and rocks tore open at a moment of cosmic significance. These accounts do not describe minor disturbances, but dramatic breaks in the natural order, moments when the physical realm mirrored a deeper upheaval. Watching soil crack and boil today stirs echoes of those narratives, not because the scale matches, but because the symbolism aligns. This was not categorized as a catastrophic disaster. There were no towering infernos or cities consumed. Yet the symbolism unsettles more than spectacle ever could, because it exposes how much of reality depends on pressures we cannot see. Beneath every calm field may lie forces gathering strength. Beneath every quiet surface may rest energy waiting for fracture. The eruption serves as a visceral reminder that concealment does not equal absence. Heat does not vanish simply because it remains hidden, and compression does not dissolve merely because it lacks visibility. When the release finally comes, it arrives with a suddenness that feels almost personal, as if the planet itself rejected the burden of containment. Earlier, skies twisted with rotating funnels, oceans surged beyond expected boundaries, and conflict-stained waters near national lines. Now, the land contributes its own testimony, demonstrating that instability is not confined to atmosphere or shoreline, but extends into the very crust that carries human weight. When the earth beneath begins to split and expel what it has long concealed, the illusion of permanence thins, and the question rises quietly yet persistently. If pressure can build unseen below our feet, what else may be accumulating in silence, waiting for the moment when restraint gives way? It began with a spark in the garage, and within moments the house was no longer a shelter but a furnace feeding on its own structure. Fire spread along rafters and wiring with terrifying speed, rolling across ceilings, pushing thick smoke through hallways, and turning familiar rooms into chambers of heat and collapsing debris. What had been a living space filled with conversation and routine transformed into a corridor of cracking timber and falling embers before the family could do anything except escape. When the flames were finally subdued, the interior no longer resembled a home, but the remains of something erased. Kitchen cabinets had buckled inward, metal fixtures had warped, plastic and glass had liquefied and hardened again into distorted shapes. Years of possessions, photographs, and daily objects were reduced to residue and brittle fragments scattered across the floor. The fire did not discriminate, and it did not hesitate. Amid that uniform destruction, something interrupted the pattern. Inside the blackened kitchen, among collapsed shelves and ash-covered surfaces, a single Bible was found almost entirely intact. Its cover carried soot. Its pages were unburned. The contrast was immediate and unsettling, because everything around it testified to intense heat, while the book itself appeared spared from the same force that consumed the rest of the room. This was not a symbolic prop discovered by chance. It was the father's personal copy, filled with handwritten notes, underlined verses, and reflections from years of early morning reading. The margins carried traces of private struggle and devotion. The pages held conversations recorded in ink over time. That object survived where furniture, appliances, and personal memories in physical form did not. The core of this event is not the fire alone, and it is not merely the survival of paper. The defining image is contrast. Total loss beside preservation. Structural collapse beside continuity of text. The house fell, the contents vanished. The written word remained readable in the center of ruin. In a sequence of events marked by instability in sky, sea, land, and human conflict, this moment shifts the focus inward, from large-scale upheaval to something intensely personal. Destruction touched a private space, stripped it bare, and yet left behind a single object tied directly to faith and daily devotion. The image carries weight without embellishment. Flames erased what was visible and material, yet the one item representing belief endured physically in the aftermath. Whether one sees coincidence or something more, the symbolism is unavoidable. When everything tangible collapses in seconds, what is rooted deeper may remain. If this moment moved you, comment endures and tell us why you think it survived. There's a difference between chaos and convergence, and what unsettles many observers is not the violence of a single event, but the compression of multiple ruptures within the same narrow window of time. When familiar systems strain simultaneously, infrastructure tested, coastlines pressured, borders destabilized, private spaces reduced to ash, the mind begins to sense alignment rather than accident, as though separate fractures are tracing the outline of something larger. Stability has long depended on the belief that disruptions remain compartmentalized, that weather stays in forecasts, that conflict remains overseas, that geological shifts stay beneath remote terrain, and that faith belongs quietly inside walls untouched by catastrophe. Recent developments have disturbed that comfort, because disturbance has crossed categories and entered spaces once assumed insulated. The unsettling factor is not scale alone, but pattern density. Events no longer feel spaced apart by years but stacked within weeks, layered in a way that compresses psychological distance and erodes the illusion of normalcy. When repeated shock narrows the interval between crises, perception shifts from surprise to anticipation, from reacting to bracing. Scripture has described eras in which creation itself appears responsive during seasons of transition. Yet such passages were never meant to eliminate discernment or suspend reason. Luke 21:25 speaks of distress among nations and signs that unsettle observers. Language that resonates not because it dictates interpretation, but because it acknowledges a recurring human experience. Moments when the familiar order trembles. This reflection does not claim prophetic fulfillment, nor does it declare inevitability, but it recognizes that repetition alters consciousness. When multiple domains exhibit fracture within compressed time, questions arise naturally about trajectory and threshold. Are these disconnected disturbances amplified by visibility and media saturation? Or are they indicators of structural strain revealing itself across different layers of society and environment?